Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and in this video I'm going to be building sort of a personal inventory app from beginning to end using Express, EJS, Mongo. I'm going to be using this template that I made. So you see here Mongo Express EJS template. A link to this will be in the video description, so you could use it. You can use it to build anything you want. And it's very well documented. So as you can see here on the main README, it explains you sort of the basic setup of the app. And if you go into any folder, there's a separate README explaining the contents that are already in that folder. So it generally has everything you need to really get up and going with a Mongo Express EJS app out of the gate. So let me just make sure that I have my Mongo database running. I want to be using Docker to do this. So I'm going to want to open up Docker Desktop. So let me go open that up. Docker Desktop. Let's open that up. Waiting for it to open. Is it already open? Let's see here. Sometimes it pops up over here. Okay, I'll give it a moment to open. Okay, cool. Docker Desktop is opening. So there it is, starting the Docker engine, just because I recently restarted my computer like an hour ago. So here we go. And I've recently downloaded the Mongo image. Okay, so this is the MongoDB 5 image, and I have it running. So I'm just going to take that image that I had running before, and I'm going to start it back up. So I'm going to hit start here on Docker Desktop, start that Mongo image, which I have mapped to port 27017. Good. Okay, because that's generally the port that MongoDB runs in. If you want more details on that, I recommend watching my 2024 Intro to Mongo video, where I actually walk through how I did exactly this. Okay, and how Docker Desktop works and all that. Okay, or you can use the MongoDB.com database. That's all well and good. Now, if you're on the template page, all you have to do to make your own copy of this template is click this Use This Template button. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to create a new repository, and I'm going to call this Personal Inventory Application. Okay, which is going to include auth. So we're going to build that authentication. Okay, so this is going to be an EJS, Mongo, Express, and we're also going to use some jQuery. Basically, personal inventory app. Okay, so I'll hit create repository, and now I have a copy of that repository of that template as its own repository, which is generating, and then we can clone it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this here so I can clone this repo. And then I'm going to head over to VS Code. I'm going to close that out, open up the terminal. Okay, so I'm going to do git clone, then paste the URL to my new repo. Okay, now that's cloning, and you can see it it created a folder with my cloned project. Now I want that folder open. So I'm going to click File, Open Folder. Okay, and then I'm going to just make sure I open that specific folder. So that's going to, for me, I'm going to be inside the Mongo Express Inventory folder and Personal Inventory app. There we go. And so that way I'm opened up to the specific folder where the project is. Okay, I always want to generally have my VS Code open to where the package.json is. Do I have to? No, but would it make things harder for myself? Certainly, if I did not. Okay, so right now I don't have my dependencies, so I have to really quickly download my dependencies. Luckily, all those dependencies are already listed in the package.json, so there's no need to have to kind of figure out what they need to be. I just can type in npm install. Okay, now all those dependencies will get downloaded, and I'm good to go. And there's my node modules folder with all my dependencies. Good. I also need my .env variable. So here I gave you guys a sample.env file. Okay, and what I have to just do is rename that to .env. Now, why wasn't it called .env to begin with? Is because in this .getignore file, we ignore the .env file because you don't want to upload your personal credentials. Okay, and now in that .env file, I'm going to put in my credentials, which this is going to work because I'm running a database on my computer. So that will point directly, again, this is the IP address of my computer. 127.0.01 is always the IP address of the computer that you are on, or the computer that the process is running on. And the Mongo should be running on port 27017. That's the default port for Mongo, and we're just going to call the database my database. That's fine. I'll call it a separate. I'll give it a different name for today. I'll just call it DB0122123 since that's the date. Okay, cool. And port 33 is fine with me. Secret something is fine with me. Again, you can change those if you like, but I'm fine with them as they are. Okay, cool. So technically, everything should be set. So I'm going to just test the scripts, just so you can see here I have a couple different scripts. I already have a seed script set up for you in the models folder. So again, if you want to seed a database, that would work. I'm just going to make sure that it is working. So I can just type in npm run seed. If I can successfully seed the database, everything should be set up correctly. Okay, perfect. That ran. And then I should be able to run the file. Okay, and I already have a sample model that's built in there already just to kind of test that things are working. So I should be able to go to localhost. In this case, it's 3333/samples. And I can see that those samples are there. Perfect. Can I delete them? Yep. Can I edit them? Yep. Oops. Well, that I gotta fix. Samples. Can I create a new one? Okay. What would say DD? Yep. And there it is, DD. Okay, perfect. So everything is up and running. Okay. So again, basically you have this sort of mini CRUD functionality right out of the gate with the template, just so you can confirm that everything works just fine. Wonderful. Okay, so we know that this is all up and good. So now we can just begin building our application. Again, if you want to know how any of this stuff is set up, you can take a look at the files, and you can actually read the readmes that are in them. So these readmes actually have explanations for what each file is doing, so that you can understand sort of what the purpose of each file is. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, since I want to build authentication, the first thing I'm going to want to do is, well, build the ability to sign up or log in. Okay. Okay, so what I am going to do, okay, is do the following. Let's create a couple routes for logging in. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have the main page. So basically in my views, there's a main index.ejs. I'm just going to have the login and sign up and login forms right there. So we're going to call this like, hey, so we'll edit that first. Okay, so even the EJS files are kind of set up for you. I'm going to rename this now. Yeah, main page is still fine. And we're going to say, hey, my inventory app. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this button. Okay. And what I am going to do from here is I'm going to create a sign up form and a login form. Okay. So I'm going to say, hey, h2 sign up. Okay, and then we're going to have a form right below that. And in that form, we're going to have an input that is of type text. That is of name username. And that's fine. We'll put a placeholder. Placeholders just put some light text in there to make it easier to kind of for the users to know what they need to put in there. Username. Your username. And actually, I'm going to want to wrap this in a label as well. So label. And let me just take that closing label tag and put that around the input for accessibility. And we're going to just say, hey, username, that. And then we're going to need another one of these. For password. Except for password, we don't want a normal text input. We are going to want a password input, so that way it hides your password. Okay, and then that's going to be password. And then as a placeholder, your password. And then we're going to have a button. That's going to say sign up. Sign up. And literally the login should be the exact same form. So I can just literally copy this, put that there. I'm just going to be login. And then this will say login. Otherwise, it's the same. Okay, only difference is when I submit the form, it should submit to a different route. Okay, so I need to set up a route for logging in and a route for signing up. Okay, so we're just going to say, hey, when this form is submitted, action is going to be a post route. No, I mean /auth/signup. Okay, and that's going to be a post request. Method equals post. And then for this one, it will be action equals auth/login. So I'm going to want an auth router for specifically those routes. Okay, so I need to actually build out those routes. Okay, because I can't. I gotta post the form's there. So if I refresh the page, I go back to the main page. So if I go all the way to the main page, this page right here. Okay. Well, actually, I'm not even rendering that index.ejs, so I need to go to the server.js. Edit the index route. The main route is right here. And what I'm going to want this to do is res.render the index.ejs. Okay. And what I'm going to want to do here is you might get redirected to this page after signing up successfully. Okay. So if this is after a successful sign up, I want to kind of note that. So I'm going to say const signed up. Let me think about how I want to do that. Const signed. Yeah, const signed up. I see how I'm going to do this. Okay, it's going to basically check if in the URL query, and you see when we do this a little bit later on, signed up, if in the request rec.query there is a signed up property that is truthy, then we're going to want this to be true, and if not, we're going to want this to be false. Okay, const failed login equals rec.query dot failed login. Okay, now if that value is truthy, then again, true, false. So the idea is that generally those things are not going to be included in the URL, but you're going to see that if someone signs up, I'm going to redirect them back to the index page, but I'm going to make sure that that URL query is at the end of the URL. And if something goes wrong with the login process, I'll redirect them back to the main page, but I'll make sure that it's in the URL. So that way I can use that variable as a way to signify whether something, to make an alert pop up. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'm going to say index.ejs, and then I'm going to pass in that signed up and failed login properties to the template, so I can use those if I want. Okay. So yes. Okay, so what I want to do is that should do it. So now I should see the page. Good. Okay, awesome. So I can see the login form and sign up form. But right now, if I said, hey, I want to sign up, Alex with a password of Alex, and I click sign up, see, I'm going to get cannot post. The route doesn't exist yet. But before I do that, I probably could just do that failed login sign up message now. So how would that work? Okay, what I can do is I will create a script tag here at the bottom just for some on-page JavaScript, because I'm going to use EJS to see if this JavaScript should exist or not. So what I'm going to do is first put in some EJS and say, hey, if signed up, so if it's truthy, then this will play out. Okay. Wait, no equal sign is needed. Okay, and then I'm going to just copy that again for the failed login scenario. Okay, so basically here, now what's going to happen is that if that is true, then what's going to happen is we'll put an alert signed up successfully. Okay, and then here, we'll just put an alert failed to log in. Okay. Cool. I'm debating whether I should make that fail to log in or sign up so I can use it for both scenarios. Yeah, that's why not. Fail to log in or sign up. Okay, so now let's see if this works. So again, right now, if I refresh the page, nothing should happen. Okay, so I'm gonna see nothing happened. But if at the end of the URL I add the query failed login equals true, this should cause that alert to pop up when I hit enter. Okay. Oh, it literally put the word alert failed to log in or sign up there. That's not quite what I wanted. So did I use the right tag? Oh, see, I didn't write the word script all the way. So let me try that again. Script and script. Okay. So hit save. If sign up. Yeah, that should still be fine. Let's see here. Let's try that again. And you see now it works. Okay, because see, basically that's, remember when I put like rec.query failed login, it's looking to see if it's in the URL. So failed to login or sign up. And now I will try to do it with like signed up equals true. Signed up successfully. So see, now I can set up those conditional messages depending on what is true going into rendering the page that time. Okay, so very neat. So now that we've established that, that's great, but I still need to make the route so that I can fill out these forms. Okay, okay. So I'm gonna head over to my controllers because I need routes. Now again, this template comes with an existing router using the sample router. So I can just literally make a new file. We'll call it our auth router. I'll just call it auth.js. And then I can just copy this over. I'm going to get rid of all the routes because I don't need the routes as they are. Okay, because these are login and sign up routes, which are going to be different than the normal RESTful routes. Okay, I don't need the sample model, so we'll get rid of that. What I do need, though, is I do need a user model. So I can't really make a user without a user model. Okay, so before I can really make my controller, I need to be able to save users in my database. So I'm going to head over to my models folder. Okay, and I am going to make a new model. So new file, user.js for my user model. I'm gonna just copy over the code, the sample code from the sample model for save time. So again, this does a lot of the work for me. Okay, so now I have to do is just design the schema. So far as a user goes, user, which let me just change the names of these here. This should be a user schema. And this should be user now. Okay, so far looking good. And every user should have a username, which is going to be of type string, which will be required. You can't not have a username. True. And then every username should be unique. Okay, no one should, two people should not have the same username. Okay. Cool. Now, username. Okay, and then password. It's going to be very similar. Type should still be a string. Should be required. Everyone has to have a password. But it doesn't have to be unique. People can have the same password. They shouldn't know each other's password. So it could just be a coincidence that two people have the exact same password. Okay, so that's fine. Cool. And then sure, why not the timestamps? Timestamps are always good. Cool. So there is my user schema. So now I can create and delete users. Wonderful. So now that I have a user model, I can then import the user into the user router. Okay, so I'm going to go import the user model. Okay, cool. We're going to say const user equals require // controllers / auth.js. So I'm going up a folder because I'm going from the auth.js back into the main folder, back down to the controllers folder. Oh, actually, no, it shouldn't be the controllers. It should be models. I'm importing the models. Models / user. Okay, there we go. So that's going to import the user model, which I can use to create users. There's a couple other things I need. I am going to need a library. It's already here as a dependency. So here my package.json. I'm going to be using two dependencies throughout this. I'm going to be using bcrypt. Bcrypt can be used to encrypt the password because you don't want to store the actual raw password in the database. You want to store an encrypted version. So that way if someone were to, rob the database, they're not going to just have everybody's raw passwords. They're going to be pretty much impossible to decrypt. So it's not like they're going to have passwords that they can use. Okay. The other one we're going to be using is Express Session. This is already configured in server.js. So that's going to be right here where that's configured. All this does is that it makes that the server tracks a session. So a session is a piece of information. It's like a little object where you can store data for that particular session. So every time a browser initially goes to your website, it's going to create a session cookie with a unique ID. So that's what this secret key is for, because it's going to use that to generate the cookie randomly. Well, it comes up with a non-random number, but a number that's unique. And that essentially identifies your session. And then when the server handles the request, if that session is changed, which shows up as a property called rec.session or request.session, it will save it to your Mongo database, which is what this line is doing here. This makes it that whenever the session changes, that gets stored in Mongo. So that way, when I make another request, that session will have the same data from the previous request. So it becomes a way for me to store data that I need to know between requests. Now, what kind of data would I need to know between requests? Like maybe did you log in? That'd probably be good to know. So I need somewhere to put that. So I'm going to put it in the session data. This is just one way to do it. This is what's referred to as session-based auth or session-based authorization, because I'm determining that you're authorized based on the data in session. The alternative would be token-based authorization, which is a whole other conversation for other videos where I've covered that. Okay, but that's what this is. So this is already set up, so you don't need to do anything. It's there. So this rec.session property will be available to your routes right from the get-go, and you can store data between requests out of the gate. But just so you can understand sort of this is where that is coming from. Okay, so since I have that, I can use that, but I still need also that bcrypt in order to encrypt passwords. So I'm going to import bcrypt. Okay, so const bcrypt equals require bcrypt. Okay, wonderful. And now we can build the routes. So first we'll build in our signup route, which we know is now keep in mind, when we register the router with server.js, we're going to register it under the auth prefix. So that means I don't need to specify that when I specify my URLs. So I can just go in here and be like, oh, I just realized I deleted the router code too. So I might as well just recreate the router. Oh no, the router's right here. There it is. Cool. Okay, router exists. So it'll be just router.post, because it's going to be a post route. Because again, when we wrote that form, we mentioned that the signup form is going to make a post request to /auth/signup. Okay, so this is going to go to signup. because again, the auth part, this part is going to be determined in server.js, which you'll see in a little bit. Okay. And essentially what we're going to want to do is I'm going to make this an async function. So that way I can use the await keyword when using the user model, rec_res. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to hash the password. Meaning we want to just jumble up that password because we want to encrypt it and we don't want to show the normal password. Okay, so basically to do that, I'm going to say const, actually I don't even need to declare, let's say rec.password, or no, rec.body.password, because again, the data from the form would be in rec.body, the request body, and in the body, in the data from the form should be the password, based on the name we gave it in the form. Okay, rec.body.password is going to equal bcrypt dot, what I'm going to do is use hash, but I'm going to, there's hash and there's hash sync. Hash is going to return a promise, and this is going to return just the actual sync. It's because it's, or the actual result, because it's synchronous. So which means it'll block your whole application till it's done, which is fine for a practice project. You know, if this were like an actual server where you're going to have like hundreds of people sending requests to it, you don't want to be blocking everybody else because one person's logging in. So in that case, you'd rather do hash. So that way, that kind of work, resolving it would then get pushed to the end of the event loop. But again, for just, you know, a single threaded application where, again, there's only one user, hash sync is fine. Okay. So we're going to use hash sync. And essentially what you do here is we're going to pass in the data that we want to hash, which is rec.body.password. Okay. Okay, and then we have to pass in a salt. A salt is just something that it uses to help jumble it. And what we can do is there's a function in bcrypt called generate salt. So and I want to use the synchronous version of it. Okay, and then I'm going to want to pass a number, so we'll say 10. And there we go. That's going to hash the password. Password hashed. Okay, perfect. Now that the password is hashed, we can then create the user. Okay, and I'm going to wrap this all in a try catch block. Okay, the reason being is that way I can handle any errors that happen, because if you don't handle errors, then your server just crashes. Okay, because if you don't tell it how to handle the error, it just says, okay, I guess I don't know what to do here, so I'm going to stop. So basically by saying try, I can then handle what happens if an error occurs in this catch block, which I am just going to, so basically if you sign up and something goes wrong, that's when we'll do a res.redirect back to / column failed login. Okay, because that's going to trigger that failed login equals true, and that'll trigger that alert message that something was wrong. Okay, so that'll be the deal there. Not the best way to handle that because it doesn't give me any details of what went wrong. But what I will do is on the server, I will console.log the error.message, because if it raises a genuine error, it'll be an error object which has a message property with the details of the error. Okay, cool. So rec.body.password. Then what we're going to do is then create the user. So I'll say, hey, const user equals the user object. So actually await, because we're using async await. Await user.create. And I pass in the rec.body because that's going to have the username and password from the form. But actually, technically, now it has the hashed version of the password because we updated it. And then once that's done, I should have the user, and then we just redirect back to main page. Res.redirect back to /. Okay. So that should be working now. So I should be able to sign up already. Okay. Cool. So if I type in and say, hey, I want to create a user, we'll say example with a password of example. And I click sign up. Oh, I never registered the router yet. Oops. So let's do that. So I roll up the router, but I still got to connect this router to the rest of the app. So I have to head over to server.js, and I'm going to go all the way up here. See where it says import routers? So I'm going to import this additional router. So const auth router equals require dot slash controllers / auth. Okay, cool. And then I have to actually then register the router. So here's where I register my router. So I'm going to say app.use, and again, use this for any routes that start with /auth. That's where the /auth comes in. And any routes that start with /auth, send it to the app router the auth router for additional handling. Okay. And the something's still wrong. Type string. Oh, the string should be capitalized. So let me go back to my model. Here, string should be capitalized because it's a type. Because we're passing in sort of the string class, not the there's no variable called string. So there we go. That does that. So now, if I refresh the page, let's try this again. Example as my password. Okay. And, oh, I know what I did wrong there. I signed up successfully, but again, I never actually triggered that message. Because if I go back to my route, I'm only redirecting you back to the normal page. I never actually put that URL query at the end that said signed up equals true. Okay, so that way, if I successfully logged in, it'll trigger that message. Okay, so let's try that again. I'll do example 2. Example 2. Signed up successfully. Nice. Okay, I got my message. Okay, now if I try, now let's see what happens if I try to do example again. Like again, I try to make the same user, or try to create a user with a username that already exists. It should throw an error. And it worked. Failed to log in or sign up. Cool, because an error got thrown. And now if I go to my console, I should see a console log of that error. And there it is. So you see right there. There's the error, which says, hey, there's more than one. There's a duplicate of the username example. Okay, so cool. It works. Okay, everything is working. We love it when things work. Okay, so now we just need to get the login working. Okay, and then we can have people log in. So now we need to write the login route. Login. Okay, which again is going to be a post to /auth/login. And that's going to be router.post. And that's going to be to /login. Again, async recres. Okay, and essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to want to go grab the username and password from rec.body. So I'm going to say const username, and actually I still want this all in a try catch block. So let me just set that up first. Try catch error. In that case, I'm going to want to console.log the error.message. So that way I can see the error in my console. So that way me as the backend engineer, I'm able to see the console error output, the logs, for me to know exactly what went wrong. But for the user, I can just send them a generic, hey, stuff didn't work message. Okay, they don't need to get the exact server error. So I'm console logging the server error for me, and then for the user, I'm going to just redirect them back to that main page. And again, using that failed login equals true. Okay, so that way they get that failed login message. Okay, so if anything goes wrong, it's just going to say, hey, something went wrong with logging in. They're not going to know what, but then I can go look at the server logs, see all those logs that were logged, and then see, hey, what was the actual error to resolve it as the backend engineer. Okay, cool. Now, first thing I'm going to want to do is, again, go grab the submitted username and password. So I'm going to use destructuring, so username, password, and I'm trying to grab that out of the rec.body. Okay, cool. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to check if that is the right password. So I need to go get that, see if, one, is there a user by that username in the database? So that's the first thing I gotta check. Attempt to fetch the user from the database. Okay, wonderful. And in order to do that, I am going to want const user equals user.find, and I'm going to see if, hey, can I find a user with that username? So what this is going to do, and I only want to do is find one. So I want to use find one, because the mistake I always make is I use find, and find is going to give you back an array, not just one user. So even if there's only one user, it'll still be an array with one user, and I don't want that. I want just the user. So find one always returns you a single object because you're only finding one. Okay. So I'm going to await that. Again, we want to await any database interactions, anything that's asynchronous. We're going to want to await, so that way I don't have to deal with like .thens and stuff. Okay. Which I just did a video on. So actually, literally the video I released right before this one is all about promises, .thens, and async awaits if you want to watch that. Okay. Cool. So we got that. Now there should be a user there. If there is no user, I'm going to get back like undefined. I'm going to get back an empty thing. So what I can do is I can check if the user's there. Check if the user exists. So if user, essentially that's going to be undefined or it's a user. It's one or the other. Okay, either the database found it or didn't find it. Okay, if there's a user, I'm going to do stuff. Else, I'm going to throw an error. Okay, so else, throw, that's what triggers an error. So that's going to trigger the try block. But then what I want to do is throw an actual error object. So I'm going to say, hey, new error. And then in here, I type in what the error message is. So I'm going to say, hey, user doesn't exist. Okay. And then that's essentially what I'm this error message right here, that's essentially what I'm going to be logging when error.message is logged on in the logs. Okay, cool. So next step is I then want to check if the password is right. Now that I know that the user exists, I have the actual user data from the database. Now I need to check, hey, does that user's password match the password that I have? So for that, so we're going to say const password check. So this is going to be like the result of the password check equals bcrypt dot compare, and I want to use compare sync because again, compare without the sync is asynchronous. I could just use the await, but again, this is not going to be a massively used application. This is just a video. Okay, and then what I do here is first you pass in the one you want to compare. Okay. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to compare the password that the user gave me from the form with the password that the user gave me that has encrypted in the database. So user.password. Okay, so I'm comparing those two. What's it complaining about? Nope, it's not complaining. Okay. So then the result, so this is going to either be true or false. Either the two passwords match or they don't match. And the reason I have to do this is because, again, the password in the database is hashed. It's not the actual password anymore. So if my password was example, what you're going to see in the database is this big jumble of numbers and letters. So I can't just say, hey, does this equal this? Like, that just won't work. So I have to use this comparing function because bcrypt knows how to make that comparison to see if they're mathematically the same password. Okay. So then we can then check, hey, if password check. Okay. And then again, if it all works out, we'll do whatever in there. And then again, if that didn't work out, so password didn't match, well, then we'll throw a different error. So throw new error. Passwords did not match. Okay, cool. So if we got to here, that means you for sure have logged in. You have successfully logged in. Your user existed and the passwords matched. Okay, so wonderful. We are logged in. So what do I do to set up the user so that way they're logged in? Well, one, I want to update the rec.session. So I'm going to change, say, rec.session, which is a session cookie, and I'm going to want to store a couple different things. So I'm going to want to store rec.session.username. Okay, and basically, if this property exists and has a value, then the user's logged in. If it doesn't, then the user's not logged in. So this is going to be sort of the way I'll be able to tell if the user's logged in or not. I could also add another property, which we will, just to make it more explicit. Why not? So we're going to say, hey, username equals username, and rec.session logged in equals true. That way, if I ever need to know, hey, is this user logged in, I can check to see if that property exists. And if it's truthy, they're logged in. Cool. And then I can just send them to the page that I want to send them. Res.redirect. Okay, res.redirect. And I want to redirect them to /inventory. Okay, because that's what we're building, an inventory app where you can just track things that you have. Okay. So that should be it. Now let's just test to make sure that the wrong things, the mistakes are handled. So I'm going to refresh this. Okay. Oh, still have the failed login message there. So let me get rid of that. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do now is the following. Okay. First, I'm going to sign up with another user. So I'm going to say, hey, test with a password of test. Sign up. Good. Signed up successfully. Now I'm going to try to log in. First, I'm going to try to use the wrong username. So I'm going to write best. So write best, but with the right password. Now, in this case, I should get a failed login. Okay. That is not what should have happened. So notice what it did is that I see auth. It made the request to auth login, but you see it says cannot get. So it didn't make a post request. So that means there's a problem with my form because my form determines whether it's a get or a post. So I need to go take a look at that form. And if I take a look at the form, oh, see, I never actually specified the method. Method equals post. Okay, so we fixed the first error. Okay. Cool. And let me go back to always annoying when it says something that is an error that isn't an error. It's just, I guess my EJS extension isn't picking up on that right. But, oh well, we'll let it go. Auth. Okay, actually, no, we want to go back to the browser. Try this again. Okay, I get it. So let me go back to the main page, unaltered. So that way again, I'm getting and actually what I'm going to do a shift refresh. If you hold shift and then you hit refresh, it does a hard refresh because I want to make sure I'm getting the newest version of this page that has the updated form. So then what I'm going to do is we're going to say, oh yeah, best test. Okay, and I should have a failed login. Login was failed. Good. And now if I look at my console, I should see that was because that user doesn't exist. And there it is. User doesn't exist. Okay. I probably should put a more detailed message if this were a professional website, like which user doesn't exist. So that way I know Oh, okay. I see. These are the specific logs to your login request when I get a call from the user saying, "Hey, they can't log in." Okay. So now let's try a wrong password. So I'm gonna write username test, but I'm gonna write best as the password. Okay. Once again, failed to log in. Okay. And if I take a look over here, passwords did not match. So the user did exist, but the passwords did not match. So now let's try it with a right username and right password. Test. In this case, I should just get like a cannot get. That shouldn't have failed. What's it say? Cannot set properties of undefined logged in. Oh, okay. So see, luckily I'm logging that error message because see I wouldn't have noticed that if I wasn't logging it. That's why it's good to handle your errors so you can see what your errors are. Okay, so what happened was this is supposed to be rec.session. Notice I did it right here, but I did it wrong here. So rec.session. Okay, so now let's try it out again. Test. And again, this time I should get the cannot get inventory. Perfect. And the reason I cannot get inventory is because I haven't made that route yet. So we do have the ability to log in, not create it. So now what we have to do is create all our routes for inventory. Okay. Now, the only last route I might want to make for later on is create a logout route. So we'll just say, hey, slash logout, which could be a post or put. It doesn't. I mean, again, the auth stuff isn't as solidified as like the normal RESTful routes. I'm going to just make it a GET request at the router.get. And it's going to be the slash logout. And essentially what it just means is that rec res, this one is going to be really simple. It's just going to do rec.session.destroy. Okay. And I'm going to make this async. Because destroying your session is asynchronous. It does return a promise, I'm pretty sure. The way I can find out is I can hover over this and it should explain it to me. So right there, yep, it destroys a session. And again, let me take a look at the return value. Session destroy, session, partial session. Okay, probably once complete, the callback will be invoked. Okay, so basically what it wants me to do is actually pass a callback into here. And this callback is going to get called once it's actually done destroying the session. So, which would mean the person is no longer logged in. At which point I would want to then redirect. So I'm going to do that callback, and then I'm going to redirect them back to the main page. Okay, so that'll be logout. Simple as that. Okay, so anytime I want to log the person out, I just do that. We can just hit that route. Whew. Okay, so we have all the auth set up. Now again, we just need a model for our inventory. So we need a new model, new file, inventory, .js. Okay, again, I will copy this over. And basically, in this case, everything should have a username, but it shouldn't have to be unique. But it is required. So we do want to like type string required true. The reason being is that you should every entry should be associated with a particular user. But again, multiple entries, like I can have multiple pieces of inventory associated with my user. Okay, and again, this is going to actually change the schema name. So this is going to be the inventory schema. And then the model is called the inventory model. Okay, perfect. And each model will have a title that describes it, which will just be a string, and a description with more details, which should also just be a string, so like a long string. Okay, cool. And yeah, that's it there. Okay, then we're gonna need a router for this. So then I'm gonna copy, what I can do is create the inventory router. So new file, inventory router .js. So that's gonna be the controller, and I can save myself a lot of time by using the sample.js, because the sample.js has exactly what I need. Okay, just a few changes I need to make. Okay, and what I need to change is this needs to be anywhere. Basically, I just need to change anywhere. I can just do a find and replace to make this quick. So find and replace anywhere that we have a capital sample. Okay, and I want to make this case sensitive. Match casing. Yep. Okay, that should be replaced with inventory. Anywhere we see sample lowercase should replace with inventory lowercase. Okay, cool. Okay, and that should be, let me just fix that. That should be lowercase I inventory because I named the file lowercase I inventory in models. Oh no, actually I did call it uppercase I, so good on me. Okay, cool. So now I'll just check each route one by one, just make sure that it still makes sense. Okay, I mean, I know that's inventories is spelled incorrectly because inventories is one of those words that doesn't have a straightforward S plural, but we'll go with it. This I'm not going to want, so I'm going to just want that to be inventory / index.ejs because I'm just going to name the views folder inventory. Okay, or actually maybe we just name it correctly, inventories, and I should probably just then change this. So Control F, anywhere we see inventories, let's change that to inventories. So that way it is correct, because that's going to bug me. Cool. So const inventories, there we're finding all the inventories. That makes sense. Then we render the EJS page that shows you all the inventories. Okay, that sounds good to me. Cool. Okay. Now new show form. Inventories new.ejs, that's fine. Add inventory to db / inventories. This all looks good to me. Although I want to console log, I want to make sure anywhere I console log. Actually, I'm going to change this. Anywhere I see this, I want that to change to console.log error.message. So I can see the detail of the message. Okay, so just do that for me. Thank you. Okay. And that's all well and good. Okay, so basically that's the beauty of the template. I've just saved a lot of time because I have pretty much everything I need in there, and I can go in there and I can just double check that everything looks right, but it all looks good. Now I just need the actual views. So I'm going to create a folder for my inventories. Inventories. And then in my samples folder, I have a copy what each view should be. So I can just copy that. Copy. I just have to edit it for my needs. Okay. Inventories goes here. Oops, I copied them into the same folder. Yes. I want to paste them into here. Perfect. Cool. Now, one thing I do want to change here is in the head, I currently have EJS, HTMX, and Alpine in case you want to use them, comment it out. I'm going to want to use jQuery, so I'm going to uncomment jQuery. So that way that's available. Perfect. And again, in all these templated views, I already have that head being included. So it's good to go. So we'll just do this page by page. And generally, I'm going to edit this that technically we're going to really need the index.ejs. I want to have everything just kind of run from there, because you're going to be able to create new inventory. Okay, I'll have it where you can still update it, so we'll still use that route. But yes, so here we go. But I'm going to actually make the show page on the same page using jQuery. So we're going to do it a little bit more complicated, but just, why not? Okay, so let's think about how we're going to want to do this. Again, the name of the page should be like my inventory. Okay, and I'm just going to I'm just going to pop all this out. Okay, and basically what I want to do is I'm going to want a main, and I'm going to want two divs. So I'm going to have one div with the ID of list and another div with the ID of show. Okay, so the idea is that one side of the screen is going to be your list of inventory, and then when you click and choose an item from your inventory, you'll be able to see that show there. And then let me think about how I want to do this. Because I can think about how I want to do this with HTML, but how do I want to do this with jQuery? Do I want to do it with HTML? It'll actually probably be a little bit simpler. No, we'll do it with jQuery. Okay. So in that regard, what I'm going to do is keep, what I'm going to do is at the top, we'll have we'll call it an article. And it's going to basically have a button that says create item. And then that'll have a link to the create page. A href/inventory. Actually, how did I do that in my controller? We said the URLs are going to be /inventory. Yep. Okay. So index here. No, not there. Index /inventory/new. Okay. We're going to wrap that button. And nice. Okay. And let's see here. I am going to want, then I want to show all the inventories below that. Okay, so we're going to use EJS inventories dot for each item, which will just be and that should be inventory that each item like that. And then let's close off the EJS over here. Okay, and then here we can say, hey, what we want for each one, which is going to be another article with the ID of item. Okay, and then each of these are going to have a H2 all right, well, it can just have the text in there and we can style it. In there, we'll just have the item.title. Okay, and then that'll be it for now. Okay. Yes. And then we'll have the show it there, and that'll all be handled through JavaScript, which is fine. Okay. Save. Okay. Cool. Now if I go back, now if I refresh the page. Oh, I didn't hook up the router yet. Okay, go back to server.js, import our router. So again, I have to head back to the top here, import the routers, const inventory router equals require dot slash controllers slash inventory. And then down here, I will connect that app.use slash inventory router. Okay. Cool. Okay. So now that should work. So if I refresh this page, okay, didn't like it because I have an extra parenthesis somewhere. Unexpected token, and it's on line. Does it tell me what line it is? That's not helpful. Okay, it doesn't want to tell me what line it's on, so I'm just going to have to look. So I'm going to go back to here to index.ejs and look for a missing parenthesis somewhere. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, it's there. It's right here. Because for each, you know what? It's probably getting confused with the inner callback like that. And, oh, I see, because I put an equal sign here. Keep doing that. Okay, because again, equals, you only use the equal sign when you're trying to inject something into the HTML. So with that, refresh. Cool. And again, I don't have any items yet, so I need to create a better new form that actually works. So I'm going to create this, make sure I edit this new form to work for my particular model. So that should be, in this case, should be title and description. Okay. And that should submit to slash inventory. And it's like create an inventory item. Inventory create page. Okay, because again, here I can specify the title custom. Since I'm not defining the head tag in here, the head tag is defined here, but you can pass it what you want for the title because the title is dynamic. It's using EJS for you to define the title there. Okay. So now if I try this again, refresh, create item. Wonderful. Now the only thing is I need to affix the routes because one, I only wanted to show inventory items that belong to my user. So in that case, when I'm going to want to get the username, which I have the username because we stored it in sessions, remember? So it should be under rec.session.username. And then what I want to do is find the user, find any inventory items that are attached to my username. So I want to adjust that in the index route. And the other adjustment is in the create route. I need to make sure I attach the username. So rec.body.username has to equal rec.session.username. So that way the user actually, the inventory item, because in the form, I'm only specifying the title and the description, not the user. Because that would be really odd if I had to specify that I am the user every time I fill out a form. So I handle that on the server side as a backend engineer. So that should handle that. Okay, so now I should be able to create an item. So we're going to say, hey, I have a wrench. It wrenches things. Okay, and cannot get slash inventories. It should be slash inventory. So I need to go back and redirect here to inventory. Okay, so let me fix all these redirects. Slash inventory. Redirect slash inventory. Redirect slash inventory. And redirect slash inventory, because now we need to keep running into this issue. Inventory. Oops. Yep, that's fine. Inventory. Okay. Cool. Okay. So let me go back to inventory. And I see my wrench. Okay, and right now not much happens with the wrench. Technically, I can click it. Something is supposed to happen when I click it. Well, actually, no, I haven't set that up yet. Okay. But let's style that a little bit so we can get the effect that's expected. So that way, when you look at it, you can see a little bit more where we're going with this. Okay, so in that case, I am going to want to use the CSS file, which is going to be inside the public folder. Okay, and if I go back to that index.ejs, what did we call? So the div list. So first, let's just do that. So main. What am I doing? CSS. Okay, so we're going to do the main. And we want to have a display flex. Okay, and we're going to justify items space around. Or no, it's justify content space around. Yep. Okay, and then we're going to want a border around the main, so we can just kind of see this a little bit. Border, which will be 2 pixels solid green. Okay, and padding of 3 pixels. Just want this to sort of be visually clear what I'm doing. Okay, and then the 2 items inside are going to be, if I look back here, it's list and show. List and show. So those are the 2 things I'm going to want to target next. So the 2 children are the div with the ID of list and a div with the ID of show. So I'm going to target those 2, and I want those to have a border of 2 pixels solid red. And yeah, a minimum, oh, I should need a semicolon. A minimum height of 500 pixels. So they take up some space on the screen. And a width of min width of, we'll say, 40%. Okay. So now if I refresh this, so you can see here, here's basically where I'm going to list my items. And then the idea is that you'll see the details over here. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time styling it, so I could make it a lot nicer, but not the point of this. Or else this video will be like 5 hours. Okay. Cool. So let's just first on getting that functionality. We won't necessarily like get all the bits. We might be able to get all the bits, but now I'm going to use my JavaScript file to add the JavaScript using jQuery, because again, we enabled jQuery earlier, and that is here in my, if I take a look at index, what did I call each item? Each item's going to have the ID of item. Oh, I shouldn't have the ID of item because there's going to be more than one, so that should be a class of item. Okay, and what I'm going to do is in the, let me think about this. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to add some properties to some arbitrary attributes to the article class that I can use to get the information I need. Okay, because otherwise, like, I'm not going to have the information on these individual items when I need them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is basically, I'm going to say, hey, the data of the item is going to equal, and then here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use EJS to then do a JSON.stringify of the inventory item. Okay, so that way I have that data accessible on the front end. And I'll show you what I mean, what this ends up looking like in the HTML. Okay, so if I do that and I go back here and I refresh, nothing changes visually. But if I inspect the page and I take a look at what I see, if I go to the body here and I go to the main and we go to the list, notice if I go here, see where it says data item, it's literally the JSON data right there in line. And so then I'll be able to use that and grab it in my front end JavaScript to work with that. Basically, I'm encoding the data into the HTML. Okay, this is going to make it easier to use it with jQuery. Okay, so cool. Now what I can do is I can go back to my app.js, and what I can do is I can say, hey, I want to const item const items equals, okay, const, what am I thinking of? Oh, const $, anything that has the class of item. So with jQuery, I'm grabbing anything with the class of item. I have videos on jQuery if you haven't used jQuery before, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm grabbing everything that has that class, and then I'm going to add an event listener to it. So $items.on, and then that gets, it's going to be on click. And okay, and then we're going to have a function that receives the event. Okay, and then I'm going to say const item, so singular item, equals $the event.target, because I want to grab this specific element as a div. I want to basically get their data. So const data is going to equal JSON.parse. And what I want to parse is that of the individual items.attribute, so attr, which the attribute was called data item, if I remember right. Going back to index.ejs, we call that, yep, data item. Okay. So it's going to allow me to grab. So this is going to grab the JSON text. I pass it the JSON parse. That parses the JSON, and I end up getting that object back. Nice. Right? Okay, so I got that data there. Now what I can do is say, hey, create some HTML. So I'm going to say, hey, const HTML. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to globally grab the show div. So const, I want to grab that div with the ID of show. So we do that. And then I'm going to hit equals, use backticks, and then we're going to put this in a div with the class of show. Okay, and then we're going to have, say, h1. Actually, let's make it an h2. And that's going to, now we're not using EJS. I'm using literal syntax because I'm using backticks in JavaScript. So in that case, I'm saying, hey, I want to use data.title. And then I'm going to have one like an h2 data dot description. Actually, that should be a paragraph. Data dot description. Okay, And why is that an H1 still? I want that as a P tag. Perfect. Okay, and then I'm going to want the edit button and the delete button. So then what I can do is I can just say, hey, form. Well, first let's do the edit. So a href equals / inventory / the ID. So we need to put in the ID in there, which should be data.id _ID / edit. And then that's going to be a button that says edit. Oh, I forgot to close the href there. Href. And then I'm going to want to close that href. A tag. There we go. And then again, this is going to say edit. So that's going to give me the edit button so I can edit the thing. And then I need a delete form that has an action that's going to go to / inventory / $, data _ID. And that's going to have, we're going to override. So I'm going to use method override to override that method. So that allows me to do this. And again, all that's described in the readmes in this template. Override equals delete. So that way I can make a delete request to that route. Okay, and good. And again, I just need to make sure this is method equals post. And then now I just need to have a button in there. Button that says delete. Okay, and essentially what it's going to do is that's going to generate that HTML. And then it's going to take the show div. Okay, the show div, change the HTML of it to the HTML. Okay, and that should work now. So now if I refresh this, I should be able to click on wrench, and that did not work. Let's see why. Unexpected non-whitespace character in JSON at position 190. Okay, so it has to do with the way the JSON is parsed. Non-whitespace character. I think I'm going to use like a trim. Okay, non-whitespace character. Thinking it through. Okay, I guess the more long-winded way, but sure to work way, would be instead of me just encoding the whole thing as JSON like I did here, is I'll just do this. Data ID equals item _ID. So I gotta use the data item _ID. And I gotta make sure I put the thing in there here. Okay. And then we'll do basically just do one for each property. So basically data ID. Then I have to do one for the title. And then do one for the description. Cool. So instead of having them done through JSON, it's now going to show each one as they all get their individual property, which means I have to change this a little bit. So instead of saying, hey, that, I'm going to be like, I'm going to cut this out because I am going to use this, Control X. But now it's going to be const data, just so that way I don't have to change the code below it. I'm going to create an object, and it's going to have an _ID property, which will equal data ID. Actually, did I call it underscore ID? Data ID. Nope, yep, still data ID. Then we'll have a title property, which is data title. So I'm just going to grab each attribute individually. Data description. Okie dokie. Save. So let's try that out. Let me refresh the page so that way it downloads the new stuff. And I click Route Wrench. And it works. So see, like now I get that show effect here. And let's see here. Just let me delete it. Yep, and I can delete it. So good, I got delete. I can probably update now. So I'm going to create the thing. Blah, blah, blah. I hit submit. I can see it. I can click it. I could probably update it. Okay, oh, I got to update the form there. So I could just use borrow what I did here for new. Copy it over to edit. Okay, the only difference is that now, here we're going to say update an inventory item. And then here, what I'm going to want to do is use value. So that way it shows the existing value. Percentage equals inventory dot title inventory dot description. Okie dokie. So we got the form there. Okay. And now let's try it again. So if I refresh this, good. And now let's see here. Can I change this to thing 2 successfully? See, I wasn't trying to make another thing, but it did add another thing. So that tells me that's not making the right request. So what I can do is I can check my Morgan laws to see what was the most recent request, and it made a post request. And the reason for that is I didn't update the form to change what it's doing here. I need to update this so that way it makes a put request. So I have to do the override it and say update method equals put, because that's what it's supposed to be. And now that should work. So let's try that again. I click on thing 2. I will want to edit it. And I want to change it to thing 3, which should change it. Put slash inventory cannot. Okay, so there's no route. Okay, because it's not put slash inventory. It's inventory slash the ID slash inventory dot slash ID. And again, the reason I have access to inventory here is because if you read the code for this particular the particular edit route, you'll see that I pass something called inventory, which we can see here in the the new edit route. So you can see here I'm passing the inventory in. Okay, but that should fix that. So now I'm gonna go back to the main page. Okay, so if I click on thing 2, let's say I want to edit thing 2, change that to thing 3. Cannot put slash inventory. Oh, did it not update? Let's see here. Go back to my edit. Yeah, that changed. So maybe I just need to refresh it. I need to probably do a hard refresh. Yeah. Because, oh, it's saying put inventory. Did I not add the ID? Slash inventory ID. Oh, I forgot the equal sign. That's the problem. Okay. That time I did the opposite. I forgot the equal sign when I needed the equal sign. Okay. So let's go back. Let's refresh this. I'm going to change this back to thing 3. Oh, but now it's trying to redirect me to the specific show page, which we didn't set up. So let me go change that. So I'm going to back to my controller. So I need to go to that update route and want to change this. I don't want to send it there. I want to send it. I want you to send me the slash inventory. Okay. There we go. That should go away. Good. So let's change that again. But if I go back to /inventory, okay, it did change to thing 3. Now let me try it again. Edit. Let's change it to thing 4. Okay, and now it works. So now I can make things. I can see the things. If I want to see the blow up of the things, I can do that. So instead of creating a separate show page, I'm just kind of creating this like sort of side-by-side visual, kind of a dashboard. And that's where you would want to use jQuery, because I'm not moving to another page. So I'm trying to replicate that functionality in the page that exists, which means I need to do front-end interaction. So that's where you would see like things like jQuery and Alpine kind of live. And then if you HTMX can also make it where, hey, you could just still have all the different routes, but make it feel like this using something like HTMX, which I've done other videos on. But yeah, so that's essentially the app. I can build. Again, I could go then style it more and make it prettier, but this gives you the basic functionality, starting from that template to building authentication. And again, I can go, I need a logout button. So let's add a logout button. So let's go to our index.EJS and just create a quick logout button. Or actually, let's put that in our head.EJS. So that way it just shows up on every page. No, we don't want it to show up on every page. So we'll just put it here. Okay, so we're just going to put a button. Not that index.EJS. This index.EJS. We're going to make a button. A href equals /auth /logout. Button logout. Okay. So let's just see here if I were to log into a different account, refresh, there's a logout button. I have logged out. Now I'm going to create like another username called toy, password toy. Signed up, good. And then I'm going to say toy, and I'm going to see I have no more items because I'm now under a different user. But if I were to log back under test, because I think that's the user we were a second ago, there are my things again. So now I do have unique items based on which user I am. Okay, so yay. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. My name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Like the video, subscribe. I'll see y'all later.